If you can't wake up from the nightmare, maybe you're not asleep. Welcome to r/CreepyEncounters. Our first post is by Silly Old Bears. This happened when I was in college. I was home the summer working. My friend was also home for the summer working, living with his parents about an hour and a half away. We finally had a rare day when neither of us needed to work, so he drove down to spend the day with me. We were saving for the coming school year, so we tried not to spend too much time, which ended up meaning we ate lunch and dinner with my family at my house. After dinner, wanting to get some time alone as a couple, we decided to pick up root beer floats at Sonic and drive out to a local state park where young couples like to hang out. We parked and walked out to one of the little covered picnic tables in the woods. While the parking lot was well lighted because of how thick the woods were, it was quiet dark sitting at the picnic table. We hung out here late into the night before and always felt perfectly safe. For some reason, I just felt nervous sitting in the dark, so when another couple popped out of the woods past where we were and started making out, leaning up against the other end of the table, we moved to my boyfriend's pickup. My boyfriend turned on the radio, and we sat in companionable silence, attempting to eat our ice cream before too much of it melted. Due to the heat, we had the windows rolled down. After a bit, the couple we'd seen come out of the woods left. Looking around, I realized something odd. Although there were normally at least half a dozen vehicles parked in this particular lot on any evening, we were now the only vehicle in sight. Even so, I didn't think much of it and continued finishing up my float. All of a sudden, I got the worst feeling. You know, that feeling when your hair stands up on the back of your neck because you can feel something looking at you when you thought you were alone. It started like that and got worse. I had the distinct feeling I needed to run in the pit of my stomach. I started looking around and realized my boyfriend was also looking around nervously about the same time he noticed I was doing it. I asked him, did he have a bad feeling? His reply was an emphatic hell yes, uttered as he started the truck and began to drive out of the park. Since we were facing into the park, he had to make a U turn. As we passed by the area where we'd been parked, a man stepped out to the edge of the woods. This happened on a Wednesday night. About a week later, someone found bodies in the wood just past where we'd been seated at the picnic table. When the crime was eventually solved, it came out a man living in a shack on the property and working as a maintenance worker for the park had killed them the Saturday night after our experience. The photo of the killer in the newspaper was the photo of the man we'd seen step out of the woods and watch us leave. The next post is by Nick the Dog Dad. 23-year-old guy here. I live in a pretty safe neighborhood and usually always lock my doors. Last night, I apparently didn't. It was not too long after I had taken my dogs out for the last time and was turning off the TV and lights when one of my dogs started growling. Not too weird since he sometimes does that when people walk by the house. He only does it to certain people, not everyone. I then heard the front door open and someone walk in. My dog then started barking. My other dog, who loves all people, came running from the other room to greet our guest. At the same time, I was reacting to what was happening and went, "What the F? Who are you?" Standing in the hall was a guy in his mid to late 20s. He was skinny and tall. Oh wait, I don't think I'm in the right place. He genuinely seemed confused. I replied with, "Hell no, you aren't. Please get out." He apologized and said he was coming to hang out with a friend and just accidentally went to the wrong place. I asked him what house he was looking for, and he said a number that was just a few couple numbers off from mine. He apologized again and left. He seemed nice and non-threatening, but I was still kind of spooked. This morning, I was ready to laugh the whole thing off. I was planning on telling my neighbor, a couple in their 30s, what happened. I don't know them all too well, but we have talked before. Luckily, I caught with one of them when I was taking my dogs out. I didn't want to come off like I was mad or scared over what happened, so I casually said, I'm sure he told you about it, but your friend paid me a surprise visit last night. My neighbor gave me this confused look and said, What are you talking about? Your friend, he walked into my house last night thinking it was your place. My neighbor was quiet for a second and then said, I don't want to alarm you, but I have no idea what you're talking about. We didn't have a friend over last night. Our last post is by True Fake Adult. I used to fight with my parents a lot as a teenager, and that led them to kicking me out once I had graduated high school. I was almost 19 at this point, which for me wasn't a problem. I had my own job and my own car, and my friends' parents had a spare bedroom that they were willing to let me rent out, so it worked out fine. This being said, I will change names, so let's call my friend Kelly and her mom Lena and her dad Kenneth. Kenneth and Lena had a lot of weird friends due to the fact that they were partiers. A lot of these friends were really nice people, just weird, and you could tell had issues such as drugs or criminal pasts. There was one guy though that was just beyond weird. Just someone who, even though I didn't know him, just made my skin crawl. We'll call him Joey. I came home from work one day, and the only person at our house was Joey. As soon as I walked in, he said hello and then made a comment about how beautiful I was. Now, I don't consider myself good looking in the slightest. I'm decent, even average at best. So I just kinda said thanks and walked off to do my normal routine. As I was making my lunch and cleaning up my mess, I felt someone staring at me. It was Joey. He'd followed me into the kitchen and was just standing in the only doorway, just staring at me. I asked if I could get him anything, but he just shook his head and continued staring at me. This made me very uncomfortable, so I just kinda nudged him over and headed straight for my room and locked the door until I heard my roommates get home. Joey left around dinner time, and I thought it was fine and went about my nightly routine and went to bed as usual. But he must have come back because he was sitting at the breakfast table when I went to get my cereal. After the whole time, he just stared, so I ate in my room. Friday night rolled around. Lena, Kenneth, and Kelly told me they were going to throw a huge party and I should invite whoever I want. I just had a feeling Joey would be there, so I invited the most intimidating male person I know. My neighbor slash friend, Charles. He was a huge guy, 6'5", and if I guess, I'd say close to 300 pounds. Charles was also covered nearly head to toe in tattoos and was an ex-Hell's Angel, but he was also the type that, unless provoked, wouldn't hurt a fly. I explained while inviting him the day before about Joey. What he told me scared the crap out of me. He knew Joey and knew that he was on the run from the police for raping a teenage girl the year before and that I needed to stay away from him. You think that's where the scary part ends? No, it gets worse. I'm usually not a cop caller, but I went straight home and packed my things and left to a safe place and called the police. Now here's the worst part. When they arrested him, they looked through his phone. He had multiple pictures of me on it. Most of them were of me sleeping or in the shower. He also had texts to another person about me and about what he and this other person wanted to do to me. I no longer talk to Kelly or her parents, and when someone gives me a bad vibe, I instantly get away from them. I will forever be grateful to Charles because he probably saved my life. This brings us to the end of r/Creepy Encounters.